keynote speech that we have, which is going to be the third and the final one, is something that I'm really looking forward to. So I remember that as a kid, the word unicorn was associated with a mystical, magical creature. But if you talk about unicorns in the business world, I don't think it's as less, right? Because it is also magical, but it's not mystical anymore because it has some kind of a tangible reality. So now, ladies and gentlemen, the theme this time around is building homegrown unicorns in the UAE. And the next speaker on stage is a serial entrepreneur, a visionary investor, and strategic government advisor who will explore the critical role of nurturing an entrepreneurial ecosystem here in the UAE. He will be sharing insights on why fostering homegrown unicorns is essential for driving the country's future growth and global competitiveness. But I might add one thing here as well. He is also into travel. He's into Formula One, he's into fitness, and I do believe he's kind of like a rock star. So ladies and gentlemen, presenting the founder of Triliv, Mr. Jigar Sagar, now on stage, please.
What a wonderful room we have here. What wonderful people. It's an honor. It's an honor to be in front of privileged guests. Starting with Your Excellencies, the leadership team. I see a lot of entrepreneurs, serial investors, and a lot of corporate service providers, support system. So firstly, thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Gulf News, for having us here. And what a wonderful day. So, I think there's something. Yeah, you can get it right. Technologically advanced. Right. So I'm here to talk about unicorns. We're not referring to the mythological beasts with the horn at the front. We're talking about the corporations, which start being privately held, privately owned, and grow up to a value of over $1 billion US. For those of you who need some perspective of what is a billion, let's take a call. 1 million seconds translates roughly to about 11.5 days. Can someone tell me what does 1 billion seconds translate to? Anyone? Almost there. It's 31.5 years approximately. So see the gap between being in a million and being in a billion. Second question, how many unicorns exist globally? Anyone wants to take a guess? 5, 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000? 1,000. There's about 1,400 global unicorns. So we're almost there. These are some of the unicorns, such as Tesla, Instagram, that you all are familiar with. But why is it important to talk about unicorns? Why do we need to know that it matters? Typically, when you are a unicorn, can you imagine the contribution you drive to the GDP of that country? Can you imagine the GDP contribution that comes not just from your organization, but also from the ones that feed into you, your vendors, your contractors? You're talking about the ability to drive the whole economic cycle faster. Second, when you talk about job creation and the talent pool, a typical unicorn can hire during a startup phase from about 300 employees, but on average, it can go up to 50,000 employees. Now, this is what they employ. Again, think about every contractor, every vendor, everyone in the support system. How many jobs did Tesla create? But also, how many jobs did the ecosystem that Tesla brought into this world create? And finally, unicorns have the true ability to change the way we live. Can you imagine today a life without Instagram? Can you imagine the automobile industry specifically focusing on the electronic cars without Tesla? We are here as a society to advance. We are here as a species to advance. I've heard my peers talk before me about advancement, and this advancement in what we receive as a society have usually come from these organizations. So where are we today? We are here in UAE, the land of ambition, the land of superlatives. I heard number one, I heard tallest, I heard largest, I heard most. This is what we have accustomed ourselves to be known as. We want to be number one. We want to be the best. We want to be the largest, the fastest, the most efficient. We do not settle at being number two. We want to be number one. Now, what's the big question? Where do we stand when it comes to homegrown unicorns? Any guesses? How many unicorns out of the UAE? So globally, we have 1,400. Someone said 5. Any other guesses? 2. We sit at 11 unicorns, 11 homegrown unicorns. To give you perspective, that's less than 1% of all unicorns out there. I did not grow up, I was not born, and I was not raised within the shadow of a leadership that allowed me to settle at being in that bracket. I have grown up in a land of ambition which expects me to be in the top 1%, not in the bottom, not somewhere in a metric saying I'm less than 1%. So what do we need from an ecosystem perspective to grow homegrown unicorns? Yep. Number one, smart capital. There's a difference between just funding and smart funding. Yes, to empower entrepreneurs, you need funding. But what you need beyond regular funding is smart funding, which is, it comes in the shape of collaboration. It comes in the shape of strategic partnerships. It comes in the shape of truly wanting each other to succeed. Globally speaking, there are a lot of venture capitalists out there, but most of the funding that happens, and especially historically to the ones that grew to become unicorns, came from corporate venture funding. It comes from corporates which invest in other startups with the intent to help them grow. Second, talent and education. We talk about the stride UAE has done in the field of education. I am a byproduct of it. I have seen over here how many schools existed when I was growing up, and I can compare it to how many schools and universities exist today. We have state-of-the-art facilities when it comes to our education system. Yet, when you talk about ranking, what we rank as our number one university gets globally ranked as number 261. Think about it. How many of you want to send your children for further education for their post-graduation to universities here in the UAE? Why are you exporting education? And how? Is it just the infrastructure? Or is it going to be by able to nurture talent? In a survey, only 15% of university students in the UAE want to be entrepreneur as soon as they graduate. A lot of them want to do that at some point, but immediate, it is just 15%. In comparison, at US, that number stands at 50. 50% of students want to be entrepreneurs as soon as they graduate. Now that's a gap. That's a gap of mindset. Number 3, mentorship and networking. How many accelerator and incubation programs do you think we have in the UAE? Any guesses? More than 7. We have about 11 to 12 incubation and accelerator programs here in the UAE. When I started my entrepreneurship journey, there were none. Today, we have that many, and I'm proud of it. And I'm proud of these achievements, and I'm proud of the trajectory we are on, and I'm proud of the growth. But just the US has 1,000 plus. Why do we not have the most? Do we not want to have the most? Do we not want to be the best? How do you expect startups and entrepreneurs to truly grow without collaboration, without the right networking, without the right mentoring? And finally, the culture of risk-taking. We live in a society, unfortunately today, where we are afraid of failing. Statistically, more than 90% of the founders of those unicorns actually failed at their first venture. Majority of them even failed at their second venture. And we are here today afraid of investments into startups due to the fear of failure. Failure is just a step towards success. I have a few statistics for you. Right. So to give you perspective, from having no funding available, we have reached $1.1 billion last year. But in comparison, US alone did $330 billion. Talent and education, number 1 here, number 261 globally. 14 accelerators, 1,000 plus in the US. Now, a lot of you might say US is a bigger space, more population, a higher GDP, so it's not fair to compare ourselves. Another country in the Mediterranean, Israel as an example, smaller population, smaller land bank, 100 plus unicorns. Why? Because it starts with the mindset. It starts with the intent. It starts with the policies that we drive of how we are going to go forward and achieve those goals. So I did what I could in a personal capacity. I started Triliv Holdings, and I founded my family office in the year 2000 when we were all probably sitting at home wondering what's going to happen next. And I was focusing at that time on what I'm going to build next. And I converted my life into something that stands for a mission to empower entrepreneurs. I have been fortunate to empower over 250,000 entrepreneurs, and I walk with the mission to make sure that I empower 1 million plus entrepreneurs globally. I started with the story of being an entrepreneur myself and having launched over 100 plus companies, with a lot of them standing at the verge of failure, having failed, and a great number having succeeded too. But I became a serial investor. I started investing in companies pre-seed, seed capital, basically at the pre-revenue stage, because that's what no one else wanted to touch. That's where the banks did not want to touch. That's where they didn't have access to funding from corporates or from governments. I started networking. I started mentoring people and entrepreneurs who were motivated enough to want to be entrepreneurs, because I have a desire to be a part of the story. I have a desire to leave a legacy behind. And it didn't start out of nothing. It started with an incident not too far from here, at a ballroom at World Trade Center, at my graduation ceremony. It started with the words that still echo. I look forward to seeing you work for the UAE economy. The words of His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum. I was 17 years old. I was at my graduation ceremony. I was probably looking forward to the graduation party that night more than anything else. But those words were planted as seeds in my subconscious. And then I realized the power of words, the power of what you say, where, and how it can truly impact someone somewhere and one day manifest into creating an ability to truly contribute to the UAE economy. So I ask and I urge each and every one of you, to the policymakers, are we going to still talk about execution, or are we going to go back to the drawing board and write the policies and the regulations to create homegrown unicorns? I talk to the investors. Are you still going to be afraid and wait for revenue to be generated before you start investing in UAE? I ask the entrepreneurs, for how long are you going to stay afraid? For how long are you going to keep us away from seeing your vision come true? The question I have is not if. The question is when. When are you going to start playing the role in creating homegrown unicorns? Because for far too long, I have been reading news about millionaires flying into the UAE. And now, I am desperate to see millionaires being born in the UAE. Thank you.
One who can see what is invisible to others. Please, a huge round of applause for him for this incredible story. Very, very inspiring.